Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, I'm sitting in my shop here today. It is absolutely a grungy day outside here in Florida. In fact, it is running at about 52 degrees and raining. Yeah, it's absolutely atrocious out there. Only the hardcore riders are out riding today, and I happen to be not one of them any longer. So I figured that today I would sit in my man shed and do a little bit of work on my TW200. Yes, I'm sure, and I hope that some of you have watched my other videos. When I bought this thing here, it needed a lot of work, and I'm slowly, very slowly, working it and getting it in there. Now I have hopefully, would like to, hopefully have this thing, sorry, running in tip-top condition soon because I would like to ride it. Hey, now last time we worked on the ignition system, I had a bad CDI. Kind of went around that a little bit if you've seen some of my videos. Now, as I was riding it the other day, well, I was riding around the neighborhood, checking the ignition system, how it worked, and making sure that all the stuff worked and stuff like that. Well, I would like hit the gas hard, and it would like the clutch felt like it was slipping. Now, when I first got this, I opened up the case because the clutch was stuck, and it would stay. Every time I put it in gear, it wouldn't free spin anymore whenever I was pressing the clutch. So I opened it, pulled the clutch out, and all the plates were stuck together. I guess from all that time that it was sitting with, it had water in it. So it kind of anyways, I ended up getting them stuck, and I thought it was going to work, but no. The other day I was riding it around the neighborhood, and it happened that whenever I would give it gas hard, it would slip, and then finally a little bit later it would catch. And also when I took the clutch out, I found out that the clutch plates were a little bit worn anyways, and they looked like they were burnt. So I went ahead and ordered one, and we got it right here. Got a gasket, the clutch plates, and we're gonna go ahead and replace the springs because might as well. We got the stuff, and it came in a kit, so obviously let's change the whole thing out. All right. Now, as I'm sitting here, I want everybody to know, disclaimer. I am by no means a professional. Right. Since I've already removed all the screws to come out. Keep in mind that all the screws are not the same size. This thing has three size or length. I'm sorry, not size, length of screws. As you can see right there, they're not very hard to mess up. So if you don't want to, you don't have to mark them. But if you do, as you're getting them out, you can mark on the case which ones are the long ones, which ones are the short ones, however you feel like doing it. Or you can mark them as, in the order that you took them off, or however you feel comfortable doing it. But just remember that there's three lengths of screws in here. You do not have to remove the starter or the starter bracket because the case is not attached. Nothing from the case is attached to that other than the frame of the front part of the motor. So I made that mistake the first time I took the starter off. It didn't really need to come off. But anyways, that's besides the point. Now we're gonna have to pull it off, and I'm gonna put the camera, and I'll show you here in a minute. Well, apparently I was wrong. You do have to take one of the other screws off right here on the oil cap, the top right hand one. It is goes all the way through the case and into the case of the. Goes through the outer case and into the case of the motor. It's the longest one, so there's actually 4 lengths of screws. Anyways, as I said, I'm not a professional, and I don't remember when I did it last time, so I'm winging it again today. But anyways, as you can see, it's draining. We let it drain for a minute, and then we'll take the whole cover off. The kit comes with a new gasket, so make sure you clean off the surface when you go put it back on. There's also, I believe there's an O-ring right here on the kit shaft. So you got to be careful and make sure you don't beat it all up. But anyways, let's go ahead and take it off, and I'll show you here in a minute. Once it's all right, we got the cover off. We're gonna already started taking some of the. Well, here we are. We got it off, as you can see, holding it in my hand. As you can see, well now Now it's separating, but just a few seconds ago it was stuck together. It would not separate. So that is one of the problems I'm having with this thing. And also, as you can see, it is fairly worn. So it was time to replace it anyways. The other thing is, when you go to put this on, make sure that a friction plate is the first thing you put on, and all friction plate is the last one that you put on. In between each friction plate, you have a metal plate. And let me show you. Friction plate. And then we have metal plate. So, friction plate first and friction plate last. On the instructions, I've heard people say that, hold on, let me back up here a minute. I've heard people say that you should soak your friction plates in oil for an hour or so prior to installing it. However, I've been reading the instructions and it just doesn't say nothing of that. The only thing it says is make sure that the last friction plate and the last metal plate, you should soak that in oil before you put it on. And that is because on the plate, outside plate, which is going to be acting as the pressure plate, I guess they don't want it to slide on there, and it tells you that when you should bathe in oil. So you gotta put some oil on this, put some oil on the last friction plate and the last metal plate while you put it on there. Now, if this is true or not, the only way they wanted to do it is fine. I'm gonna go ahead and bathe them in oil before I put each thing in there, and can't go wrong. I mean, it's gonna be soaked in oil all the time, right? So you can't mess it up. So we're gonna do that. And excuse me. Here's where, when you press on the clutch pedal, this thing moves out this way, pushing out on this, releasing pressure, and then the springs will take over and allow pressure to come off a little bit. When you let go, the springs will compress again, putting pressure on that, making it cause friction and therefore turning with the motor. As you can see, the metal plates have these teeth right here that go in here, because this is the actual let me see. Oh, this is the transmission part, and this is the engine part right here. So the engine is turning this. When you press the clutch, it separates the rotation between these two pulleys right here. I'm sorry. Yeah. These two pulleys. See, transmission pulley and engine pulley. If the engine is turning, this pulley is always turning if the engine is turning. When you depress the clutch, it separates the two and it allows this one to freewheel and this one to spin with the motor. When you let go of the clutch, the pressure plate puts pressure on the plates over here, causing it to bind and turn together, and that's how you get forward motion. Excellent. This one does not have reverse, so I don't think any of these ever came with reverse. It's a 200. You can actually pick this up and throw it over the fence. Not that I'm ever going to try. But anyways, just a point. So, let's continue on. Alright. I didn't think I needed to show you guys how the plates go on one at a time. I mean, it's very simple. You can't mess it up. It's friction plate, metal plate, friction plate all the way to the outside, and you should end up with a friction plate at the end. The friction plate is the one that has the little rubbing stuff on it. The metal plate has nothing. It's just straight metal. Okay, that's just so you, if you don't know. I hope everybody knows now. And anyways, it's on. I put it back on. I doused it. I coated everything with oil. Something like that. Say, some people say you soak them for about an hour or so. I don't really care. It doesn't say for an hour. It just says coat the last one with oil before you put it on. I've done that, and we'll go from there. All right. So now we got to put the springs on, the bolts, and start tightening that pressure plate down. All right, we're almost done here. This is a fairly simple job. Anyways, once put the springs in, the screws. Oh, by the way, before you, if you're gonna change out the pressure springs, before you put them on it, make sure you measure them to the old one. You shouldn't have more than maybe half a millimeter difference between the new ones and the old ones. You're not actually looking for length. you're actually looking for the strength of the spring, but I don't have anywhere to check the spring tension. Yeah, spring tension, that's what it's called. But so I just checked them against the link, make sure that they're around the same ballpark area. The new ones would probably be a little bit higher, maybe about half a millimeter higher or so, something like that. I can't remember what the book said about it, but anyways, try to measure them, see if they're in the same range. If they are, you replace them. Go. If they're like millimeter, 2 millimeter difference, they're probably the wrong type of springs, and don't use them. And go back and check your book again. That's the other thing. Make sure you check your book service manual, because it's very important. It has a lot of important information that very useful for all of us, including me. So, anyways, it's on. It's tightened. The This centerpiece right there that you see, that is your adjustment screw for the clutch cable handle, the bar that comes across. What it is, according to the book, is you run that down all the way till you feel tension, pressure, stop, and then turn it back about half a turn to a quarter of a turn, and then put the lock nut on, tighten the lock nut, and that should be plenty of travel on that bar, and it will keep from rubbing all the time. You don't want this bar to be rubbing, to be under tension all the time, because then you're gonna have wear on your bar and all kinds of other stuff. You want it to, whenever you release the clutch, have just a small tad of separation between the plate and the bar, for that purpose, so that you don't get anywhere. But you also want it to engage and disengage like it's supposed to. And we are there. I've already ran it down, ran it about a half a turn out, and I'm going to tighten the lock nut and we'll go from there. Anyways, lock nut bolts right here. You run these bolts all the way down. The center part. We're talking about the center part, okay? You turn it all the way in until you feel pressure, and then you turn it about a quarter of a turn to half a turn out. You hold it with a screwdriver and then tighten the lock nut, and you should be fine. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. We're almost done. As you can see, I already cleaned up, getting ready to put a new gasket on. And before I put it on, I was going to show you something that's very important. That pay attention before you go put it on. I'm sure that you noticed that when you took the cover off, two thin washers came out. A thin washer round and another one with two little prongs on it. They go right here. Let me point out, right in there. The round one with no prongs goes on the outside. The one with the two prongs, the prongs go in towards the engine. And if you look, on the engine itself, it's got two little slots where those little prongs go in. So make sure that the prongs go in the slots. Then put the thin washer behind it, and then you're ready to put the cover back on. I just thought I'd show you that before I put it back together. As you can see, everything is good to go. Make sure that you didn't lose any parts. And everything that you took off in there is back on there. You got the springs and bolts screwed down. We got the travel adjuster adjusted correctly. And we got everything cleaned up and the washer's on. Now let's put the cover back on. Well, we are at the end of our video. I have put everything back together. I didn't think I needed to show you how to put the screws back on, or how to line, other than that little bracket, and I still got to put the foot pedal back on. But anyways, you don't need to see that. I'm sure you already know how to work tools and how that goes back together. The other thing is oil. These particular models do not use a regular car engine oil. The reason is because they have a clutch and it's wet and it's cycled through, the oil cycles through it. So you got to use a wet clutch oil. There are several companies that put it out there. I'm using that brand right there. There's you can find it at Tractor Supply. You can find it at Harley Davidson. There are several companies that put it out. Just make sure that it is for wet clutch systems, and it should work fine. I'm using the 1030 weight here because that's what they had at the time, but normally 1040 will work also. It's just make sure that it is for the wet clutch system. Remember, wet clutch. Do not use a regular car engine oil, because that's not going to work, and you're going to find out that your clutch will be slipping. It will slip. It does not grab very well. I believe that sometimes you can use regular oil, gear oil, and just add a friction modifier to it, but I'm not really sure. Don't quote me on that. I'm still going with use the oil that has for the wet clutch system. what, this is where it terminates. I'm going to finish up, and then can't go for a ride because the weather is really nasty outside. But it will sit here for a day or so, and then we're going to go out for a ride. So I hope you enjoy the video. This little nasty afternoon, nasty morning, day, afternoon out there, and it is nasty. But still some more work coming on this thing. As you can see, it needs lots of work, but it's going to be working. We're slowly going, getting there, getting there, getting there, getting there. All right. Have a great day. Hope to see you on the trails one day.